Good evening, everyone. Hello. I love this packed house. This is awesome. And I have to say, I'm not too surprised because I think the morning after we had the opening for Memories and Inspiration, Betty and Kerry were here. We knew that we were going to be in for a full house because I think word spread throughout Cincinnati that you two are just so fabulous and everybody wanted to hear you talk about collecting and your experiences. So I'm going to say a few remarks and then you're going to hear very little from me tonight because I really want to make sure they're the center of attention. But for all of you that I haven't had a chance to meet yet, I'm Becky Beaulieu, and I am the Louise Taft Semple, President and CEO here at the Taft Museum of Art. And I could not be more delighted to welcome you to this evening's discussion with Kerry and Betty Davis, the collectors behind Memories and Inspiration. Before we get started, I have to thank our generous sponsors who made this exhibition possible. First, I'd like to thank our exhibition sponsors, the John Hawk Foundation, Fifth Third Bank, and John W. Hawk co-trustees, the P&G Fund of the Greater Cincinnati Foundation, the Sutphin Family Foundation, and Fifth Third Bank. And I think Roy Sutton is here. Is Roy Sutton here? Royce, yeah. Well, I hope I do. And next, I'd like to thank our seasoned funders, Artsway, the Carol Ann and Ralphie Hill Jr. Foundation, the HBEW and FR Luther Charitable Foundation, Fifth Third Bank and the Ohio Arts Council, our admissions sponsor, Western and Southern Financial Group, and our presenting media sponsor, Ohio Magazine. Further, I'd like to acknowledge our exhibition endowment funders, the Ellen and George Revachol Endowment, the Warrington Exhibition Endowment, the Shelgren Family Endowment, and the Sally Robinson Wadsworth Endowment for Exhibitions. Whew, okay. You know what a problem to have when you just have so many people supporting you and you have to thank them. So I'm sorry, everyone, but that one is well worth it. And of course, I want to thank everyone here who is a member of the museum for your continued support and your dedication to this museum and its ability to bring absolutely phenomenal collectors and human beings like the Davises here to be with us today. And just a couple logistics before we get started. We are recording tonight's talk, so we will be using microphones and trying to be as clear as we can. I've confirmed with Kerry and Betty that we're all comfortable taking questions during the conversation. So if you have a question, just feel free to raise your hand, and then I'll make sure to repeat it so anyone who's not here in the room with us or viewing the recording knows what the question was, okay? Now, Kerry and Betty do have another engagement directly following this one, so I know that everyone will want to just stare deeply into your eyes and tell you how amazing you are after we're done here. But we're going to try to keep that to a minimum, so I'll try to keep us on track with a 6 p.m. end time. That's another reason why we're looking at having questions during 7 p.m., sorry. Everyone can just head out. Yeah, we're done. Sorry, everyone, it's been a long day. So what I'd love to do now is turn it over, and it is such an honor to introduce Kerry and Betty Davis and the exhibition Memories and Inspiration. So as those of you who may have viewed the exhibition already may know, this is the culmination of a 35-year journey into the world of art and collecting. The exhibition includes over 60 works from your personal collection of over 300 works of art displayed in your home in Atlanta. And you have built what is universally acclaimed as one of the richest private collections of African American art in the world. So knowing that, I've just in talking to you, you've developed an encyclopedic and personal knowledge of African American art and artists through this lifetime of private study and passion, and gathering art over decades of economical living to surround yourself with the art objects that you love, and as I've heard you say, the family members that you love. So we all know kind of the story that was able to bring the art here for us, but I'd love to hear you talk maybe about your earliest days of collecting. What was the first work of art that you purchased? How did you come to obtain it, and how did it influence and maybe spur your collecting habit and passion?
Wow, that's a good question. We're going to start with Kerry Davis.
You know what? I will get to that, but can I take a moment and thank some of my sponsors as well? First, I want to thank Mr. Sean Ross for paying. He was our fixer.
Yes.
No, thank you all for coming out here tonight. I was so delighted that the Taft Museum took this exhibition, because these are the communities that we wanted to go. And so I was just delighted. We have family in Cincinnati, so I was so looking forward to coming to it. But we have people here tonight, so many people here tonight. And I want to say thank you. It's a Thursday. You are all busy people, and they stopped what they're doing to travel here. And I'm speaking of the people outside. My brother is back there, Jerry and his wife. I have the Ross family is here. Back waving hands. Lexington, Kentucky family. Our Philadelphia, Pennsylvania family. We come to, and of course, Atlanta. So when we roll hard. And Florida. That's right. They want to thank Elise, because they had put in one registration, nothing. But I'm so glad that they came on in spite. And thank you so much for allowing us to be here, and my family to come as well. So thanks.
Thank you.
Now back to question number one at the beginning. Is this on?
Let's repeat everything.
It's on now. All right. Well, yeah, back to question number one. So we're very close to 40 years of collecting African American art. And my first piece, I have no idea what it was. That was 40 years ago. But I can tell you the first significant piece of when I was collecting. And I say that because at first I was buying art to decorate my home. Buying art and collecting is two different things. When you collect, there's there's some concentration involved. There's some, your selections involved. You have to narrow it to, what you do. One of the pieces, and it get real fuzzy. I don't even try to remember things too much to be so accurate, but it's close enough. Was the Jacob Lawrence seriograph that's in the exhibition now, and it's the General Toussaint. And when I saw it, I had bought a home. I was in the Air Force, and when I was released, I went straight to the post office. And I had bought my first home. I was 23 years old. Wow. I wanted, that's a kind of cultural thing in the South. You get a house. My family never lived in an apartment. I don't really know apartment living. So that was, you work for. I wanted to have, I guess, man caves. The term wasn't invented. But I wanted something in my home that was masculine. But that reflected my ethnicity. But something with a sense of pride in it, And I've seen that image of General Toussaint, that profile. And Jacob Lawrence, the artist Jacob Lawrence, was the reason that I started collecting. It was his narrative paintings, the storytellings within his paintings. And I had the opportunity to meet Jacob Lawrence, and as much of the work you see that's in our collection, these are personal relationships that I had with artists. So now, you know, if you look in the marketplace, these things are selling for like crazy money, ungodly money. But at the time, I knew those people. They found favor with me, and I was able to acquire their works, you know, because I didn't have any more money than anybody else. You know, I first started working for the post office. I made $19,000 a year, but that was big money for me. It helped me pay my bills and that kind of thing. So, you know, but they knew, those artists, and they knew that I had a genuine love and respect for what they were doing. And they wanted, and particularly because African American art was so under-recognized, and just now really kind of cracking the surface, so under-recognized, they wanted Black people to have Black art, if you want to use that term, but by people of color. And so I met them. They introduced me to their friends and their associates. And it was just, you know, and I never thought anything of it. Just kind of going through life, much like Forrest Gump. But you know, his life parallel with all these events. I've worked in artist studios, but my life kind of the same way. I've known these artists, and you know, much of them are gone now. But when I go through and see the works on the wall, I remember my friends. I remember the time they took. I've never had an art class in school or anything like that, but I learned everything I know from them, from the master themselves. I think that's the end of that. You said how did it
influence kind of collecting for you as an activity, as a passion?
Okay, well, if you could extract that out of the guy, I'll try to do that. No, so, you know, again, it had an impact on me. I have dignity, I have respect in some of the images that I'm looking at. So, I'm in studios, or I go out and I'll visit, see, know art, learn about different techniques and styles. And it's an unconscious thing, but I just kind of look for things that placate me, that satisfies me, that give me peace. You know, you out walking to meet at the mailman, and I'm a inner city mailman. And you know, first of the month, hey, where's my check? I'm in the city now. I'm going to drug houses. I'm into this, and it's hostile. But to come home and see a beautiful Richard Making landscape, it brings me down. Or see a Charles White, My God is a Rock. You know, it brings me back to the spirituality that we grew up with. It brings me in. And I didn't have, thank you. So, you know, I didn't have much money, you know, it's disposable income or whatever, but that's what I did with my money. So I didn't buy the Mercedes because I couldn't buy it. But I had my own little party. You know, I didn't go to the club because that's what you know, and it was a mutual thing. We worked, you know, and you go to work, you go to school, and that was it.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's fascinating just for me, and I'm already completely off script at this point, which I knew was going to happen. I just had a hunch. But it's fascinating to me because for those of us who work in the arts, right, and we love this world, but of course, you know, we understand that historically things like museums have been gatekeepers. Sure. And there's a focus on editing and curating, which has a really positive connotation, but can also have a negative connotation. And that we rely a lot of times on collectors and those with a strong spirit for art to help teach us where we should be going. How have you felt, both of you, as you've evolved as collectors and gained, I think, relationships with institutions? You know, that's not the institutions teaching you about art. It's you teaching the institutions about art. How do you feel about that? Is that something that you're proud of? Because you should be.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You want to say something?
Okay, one of the,
Oh,
I get to talk a little bit here. You know, he's a storyteller. So I'll just share a little bit. We had an exhibition in 2019, 2019? Yeah, at Clark Atlanta. No, 17, that's been a while ago.
Yeah.
It's been a while ago. Anyway, at Clark Atlanta University, and that was one of our first really big exhibitions that we had. We had a little one we talked about years ago at the Gilbert House, but that Clark Atlanta was an amazing exhibition, and people came out just like they came out for this exhibition here. But one of the things I was really, really proud about is because Tina Dunkley was one of the leads there, you know Tina, and she would come to our home, and Kerry and Tina had such a great relationship, and Kerry was a teacher. He helped to teach, he helped to share the story of our collection, so it also encouraged others to want to become collectors. But having a museum lead to come in and share with us, and we had that with other museums also, to come in and spend time, and we just take joy out of that.
Yeah, how I feel about the teaching institution. I'm delighted, actually, you know, because if you want to know, you need to ask somebody. I know. And I am so proud because these are my family and friends, the people you see on the wall. But I think because how I acquired those things, somebody have to tell that story. I have a personal relationship with them, so I feel that I'm called to come and talk to the museum. We want to talk about inclusivity and diversity. And so, you know, kids, when I was growing up, when I walked in a museum, I didn't see anything like that. Our kids want to see us in that work. So, yeah, I'm delighted. I'll go to any museum if we can do this because it just helps everyone. It helps the entire community.
And it helps us to learn from you. I think that's really important. What's the most interesting or unexpected way a work of art made it into your collection?
We took a trip to Virginia. Yeah, we took a trip. We have a few stories, but I'll start with this one. We took a trip to Virginia with some friends, and we stopped by this town called Market, Virginia.
Northern Virginia.
Yeah, and we're going to a consignment shop. We stopped by, and here I am. I go in and carry them with our friends and looking at furniture. My husband spotted a valuable piece. Tell him about that.
I should have just taken the microphone.
Cliffhanger.
So yeah, I walk in. It's typical. It's all about knowing. You know, growing up, you know, I had the advantage of going up to Clark Atlanta University, who started the Atlanta Art Auctions, which was in 1942, which was one of the few, if not only, places that African American could exhibit, maybe one of the few places. And they have, you know, as an artist win an award, the school buy it and put it in their collection. So I had a lot to draw from in the catalogs, and plus knowing some of the guys who taught me. So when I walked into the thrift store and I recognized this, it was a Harlem Renaissance painter, James Lester Wells. And it's that same piece is up in the exhibition too, called Icarus. But I recognize it. And I want to go back and emphasize what you know. Because if you walk into a thrift store and you don't know what, junk is just junk. Unless you know what junk you're looking at. So, you could, do what you want. But yeah, I found it, and then immediately the salesperson came to me, and while I was inquiring about it, and they was kind of running this line down, this is worth this and this is worth that. But you trying to tell me something that I already know, and you're not correct in what you're saying. And so I just kept it cool. And I didn't even buy it that day. But I waited, and I knew up there where we were, this is very, very rural area. I knew that piece would still be there. Nobody goes up. And true enough, waited long enough, they let me have it. And it was worth all of that he was talking about. But that was one way.
What? Which story are you going to tell me?
The Mitchell Baking story.
Oh, okay, I'm going to start it.
Okay, because I'm here, it made me come to here. It's awesome. So, we were invited to a art showing of a artist studio, Aaron Mack. And he was a show, and we had to have people there. And one of the visitors to the show was Richard Mayhew's daughter, Ina Mayhew. So I was engaged in conversation with her and some others, and he was somewhere else. And I started talking, and she said, "Hey, I'm just trying to find some local artists in Atlanta. I just want to connect. And of course, who did I say? I got your man, Kerry. This is a great story. So at the end of the day, they connected, and we went around. I'm going to just speed up. And at the end of the day, she selected some pieces, and Kerry went around with her. It was a little journey. Kerry actually got a credit on a movie. Yeah, that's what it was. Tyler Kerry. What was that? Which one was that? You remember?
Medea's Family Reunion. Oh, no, you better leave gaps in the story.
But we gotta speed it up.
Anyway, I don't want to talk about it. So, she was a set designer. I didn't know who she was. And she wanted artwork for the movie set. I knew all the artists in Atlanta, so I can get you artwork. I didn't know. She walked in the house and she just, these people. She looked at Romeo and said, he used to come to our house. He used to smoke cigarettes with my daddy. He used to come. I'm like, who are you? Who are you? And she said, Richard Mayhew. I said, oh my God, I didn't know. She called him on the phone. I got a chance to speak with him at that time. But anyway, after the movie, all the set that summer, after the movie, they have this thing they call a rap party. Well, everybody in the movie, they get together and have stuff. And at the end of the movie, she walks to me with this Richard Mayhew painting, and she gives it to him, saying thank you.
Well, her dad brought home, and he had dinner with us. What a treat. Yeah.
What's so great hearing both of you talk about this is I love the stories, because the stories not only bring the artworks to life, and now all of us can go through and kind of experience vicariously through you these stories, but it also brings to mind what you both said and what I referenced earlier, which is the idea that these works comprise family for you. They're not two-dimensional or three-dimensional static works, but rather you look at them and it's a lifetime of experiences, right? So when you think about, and maybe this goes back to the initial question, buying stuff to decorate your house versus being a collector. We spend a lot of time talking about knowledge and formal education versus not. Talk to me a little bit about the spirit of collecting. What is important to you when you are looking at and finding love or affinity in a piece?
The spirit. For one, I really don't go looking for anything. It finds me. We all have different experiences. Things resonate, and you may see, anything that reminds you of a pleasant day and time, or it just reminds you of something. And case in point, there's a piece upstairs. You see a young boy, it's a superimposed, just a headshot by Alfred Conte called Jalen. And which simply reminded me of a kid, any kid in the community, or a kid at the barbershop, some little big head boy, might be a nephew. But
I think the same as the other one next to it.
Yeah, the baptism piece.
Yeah.
But it's just so striking, and it's so innocent in a child. And I'm like, I want that. Yeah, I want that. So, that's how I really don't really seek out anything. There may be some older artists that's gone, and I've liked their work for years, and something may become available, but it's still about the same thing. It's something that I really like to something.
But when you were talking about something that you said, something that finds you, Kerry has another wonderful story that we share. He, again, being a postman, I want you to talk to them about this story. Okay? My God is a rock, because that is so powerful. It's a powerful story. So you share it, because you share better than I. But the thing is,
give me some short questions, because you said talk too long. I'll take it. I can't talk. So one day I'm down at the post office sorting mail. That's what I do. I sort mail. Then every now and then I'll take a piece of your mail and I'll read it. If it's interesting, just to, I don't open it up. But what came across my case was this card saying, at auction, Juanita Portier, personal effects. And they had in parentheses, so I was former wife or ex-wife of Sidney Portier. Now, a wise guy like me, I look at the Jet magazine. I look at the Ebony magazine. And I knew that Harry Belafonte collected works, was a big art collector. But I also knew that Harry Belafonte and Sidney Portier was buddies, in the movies and stuff. So I went to and it was actually a known for furniture store, the auction house. And I went through and they had this poster tube with a little sticker on it. And I'm like, who gonna auction off a poster tube? Of course, I opened the tube and I saw a 1958 lino cut, pristine condition on Japanese paper by Charles White. My God is a rock. I'm like, oh my God. I said, I'm coming to the auction. Never been to an auction before in my life. I went in, I signed up, they gave me a church fan with some little numbers on it. I was sitting over there with that church fan, just like that. I was trembling so bad. I don't know, just anxiety. And most of the people there were furniture dealers. Thank you, Denise Graves, for showing up over there. She walked all the way from I saw the Charles White. I rolled it back up and I put it back in the tube, and I said, well, maybe nobody would see it. Auction day came and I sat right there. I won the bid. And when I walked over and paid for nutty me, I could have stayed in and bidded on other things, but I thought it was like a Brinks truck. I thought somebody made robbed me. But I got ready to walk out after I paid for it, and the young lady stopped me. She said, hey, excuse me, sir. She said, congratulations on your bid. She said, my mother really wanted that bag. She introduced herself. It was Sidney Poitier's daughter.
And he did give it back.
So we stepped out and we chatted a moment, and I just told her, I started rattling off about how I knew all about Charles White and his favorite artist, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. She stopped. She said, "You know what? My mother would be so proud that you have this work." And I told her that anytime she wanted to see it, she could, she's always welcome. I felt good for a while, but as somebody's, distressed in my something like that, it kind of took some shine off, but I didn't give it back.
Oh, this is so great. And I want to remind people, please feel free to wave a hand if you have a question, where, we can jump in sometimes too, so don't worry about it. But I'll ask, let's talk a little bit about the exhibition. How did it come together? How did you decide to do this, to finalize what was going to be on tour that went out to institutions and what would stay at home?
We did an exhibition in 2016 at Clark Atlanta University. After I retired, I have some really good friends with a wonderful collection. I mean, a really wonderful collection of Larry and Brenda Thompson. And me and Brenda have been friends for a little while now. She had called and she said, "Kerry, she said, I wanted to do something for Atlanta." And I was thinking, well, okay, I thought we'd feed the homeless or something. I mean, they're really good people, they do stuff. And she said, "I wanted to, what you think about exhibiting some of your art at Clark Atlanta? And, me and Larry will sponsor it, we'll do a catalog and all of that." And yeah, that's fine, that's great. I like being out. And it was such a huge turnout, huge response in the city. And that catalog made its way to Washington, D.C., the International Arts and Artists Traveling Company. And after the exhibit was over, it may have been a year later that they engaged me and say, "Hey, how about traveling this art collection?" And I'm good with that because, again, I just feel it's important that these artists be seen and known and talked about and written about. So I agree. Now, as who made the selection? Every organization, group deals with art. They have their own curators. I didn't curate the show at Clark Atlanta. Tina Dunkley did. So she come and make the selection she does. Even when we put this show together, I collaborate, but I don't, if I did it, it may be a different group of works up there, probably some of the same artists. But everybody have a curator and they select what they do. Even when it comes here, you have a curator, and every venue it goes to, it's displayed differently because most of they have a narrative, they have an idea in mind of how they want to present it to their community, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. And so I didn't choose it, how it goes out, and I never criticize. And I've been told more than once to stay in my lane.
One there and then one here. What's your question?
So I'm a little bit of a collector myself, mostly of African American art. And I've been collecting for a while, about maybe 20 plus years, 30 years. But I mostly collect prints, or limited edition prints. And I've been thinking maybe I should start collecting originals. If you are, what would you advise a young person who's, not me, but any person who's just beginning to collect art? Should they focus on prints and then originals, or should they just try and get, originals, or what would you suggest?
And let me just jump in because I want to make sure we hear it for the recording. So the question was, for those who are starting out with collecting, do you recommend starting with prints or original works? Kind of what's the inroad there? What are your thoughts?
I would say, you blaze your own trail. You tell your own story. I know, and I have friends who have print collections that are very wonderful print collection. We have some outstanding printers. You said print, then you said originals. Now, don't discount prints as non-original, especially when you get into different type prints, mono prints. That's original work, theoretically. So now that's a good starting place, simply because it's more affordable than other mediums. But I would just say, buy what you like, at some point educate but do your own thing.
All right, very good.
I think that's great advice. And there was another question up front here.
Yeah, the cards next to each painting tell such vivid stories about either the artist or the painting. Do you collaborate with that?
So the question is about the text labels and that they tell such vivid stories. And the question is, do Kerry and Betty collaborate at all on those text labels?
That's a museum question. Maybe the museum curators, they would do that, but they will ask me from time to time, if I can clear something up or make it accurate or something like that. But not much they do.
So if you are a fan, obviously they're informed by the Davises, but I'll also give credit to our educational and our curatorial team. So Tammy Mente, who is back there. And then we also have Elise, who got a shout out earlier, our head of education. And while she doesn't necessarily do those text labels, she was very vital in getting our community voices as well. So that also is a cool thing. Another question.
Yes, I wondered if you have your very, very favorite pieces still at home.
Do you still have your very favorite pieces at home?
No, actually, it's right upstairs.
Is it?
Yeah, it's it's the Jacob Lawrence pencil drawing. It's a builder series. And, of all the works in the different mediums you see, my favorite medium is a number 2 graphite pencil. If you can handle that, you're good. But when I first got out of the Air Force, I was a carpenter. I worked as a carpenter's apprentice. But I was also my mother's kind of handyman, at least in my mind. As far as, repairing the back screen door sometimes, and I had skills. And when my mother passed away, it was 5 boys, 1 girl. She left just, she had insurance, just a little insurance. And I said, you know what? I'm going to take my money. I'm going to pay off all of my bills. And then I woke up. 30 days later, I'll be right back where I was before. So, I said, I'm going to buy something that I really like, but it's going to be in my mother's memory. So because of my industry, my carpentry skills and that, I purchased that, had put a little money with it. And it means more to me as far as a painting, and it's not as pretty or it's not as, have a whole lot of other meaning other than what I wanted. But that means more to me than anything. Beautiful. That work.
My favorite is Rebekah. He's a wonderful artist out of Philadelphia. I'm from Philly. Yeah. He's a child of a PK, so am I. He's a 7th son. I'm a 3rd daughter. So I was like, we connect. But he's a wonderful artist and does
art with a lot of color, and I love color. And he, one of the pieces I favor is Listen with My Eyes, and that's one of my favorites.
Beautiful. I love that. I saw there were another couple of questions. Yes.
Have you donated any of your works to a museum or one of the schools yet?
Yes, so that's a question I think that relates to the question I've heard the most on tours. So the question is, have they donated any works to a museum or to a school? The question I hear the most, and I'll piggyback on that, is what's going to happen to your private collection? Have you given thought about to where it's going to go and how we enjoy it in the future?
See, that was my backup.
Go sell it. To answer the first question, yes, we have donated to museums. And, I kind of strategically place that. I'm interested in children coming in to see that work. And, some of the places that they can check some boxes for me. I don't want to give it to you and you're going to put it in the basement and roll it out February. No, if you're serious, we'll do that. Now, listen, I'm a realist. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. No, I ain't had a whole lot of money. My children will get some artwork. My children, I'm gonna take care of our home first. And then, as we get to place things, we do some things, we will. And we've already started that. But that's that,
Fascinating. Okay.
So, similar question, on your journey of collecting, have there any pieces that you've fallen out of love with and have parted with?
Oh, any pieces you've fallen out of love with and subsequently divorced?
No, I can't say. Now, I've given works away for gifts. I've had people come to the house, or we've had friends who, they just had a love for the work. They remind me so much of me. But if you're a good steward and you're gonna care for it and you love it, we can do that. We have an abundance to do that, so we have.
I love it. Yes.
What's the most expensive piece of art you bought?
Oh, what's the most expensive piece you bought or acquired?
Probably the Elizabeth Catholic thing. The sculpture. That's a Catholic sculpture.
It's upstairs.
Hi, I'm interested in the culture of collecting because I think about when you look at the time you were collecting in the 40s and the 50s, you became personal friends with those artists.
Not the ones that was alive.
So in today's world, especially with the younger artists, do you have that same kind of relationship?
Absolutely.
So the question is that so much of this is based around your personal relationships with the artists and how you got to know them. Do you still feel that way?
Absolutely. What you see is what you see. But there's more. There's a younger generation, there's a contemporary, but we've supported artists that, and it's not, and when I say support, it's not all about buying artwork. You might be buying supplies. Or throw their work in the van to get them to the venue to where they could. It's called Black philanthropy.
I love it. Another question.
To piggyback off of that, with that being said, social media plays such a major part now in today's world, and there is a wealth of amazing, younger, talented artists. Do you have any, even in Cincinnati, we have G. Horton, who is amazing. Do you use social media to seek out, find different artists?
So social media is so important today, or so prevalent. Do you ever use social media to seek out artists?
Not really. Some of the younger artists I know, they are on Instagram and different things like that. And I really lean on them, just like I lean on the older guys they introduce me to different, but I'm not so big on being on social media because people will send you questions, I won't respond. I mean, and I don't want to diss anybody, so that's just too much. You know, that's another generation. There's so many people out there. There's so many artists out there in different communities who does fantastic work. I can't do it all. Not that I even think I'm expected to or anything like that, but there are others, and there are collectors coming up. There are young collectors coming up doing things, and it's a place for everybody, to collect or whatever.
I'll share another one of the questions that I hear most often, which is, we understand that you collect for your home. You now have an abundant collection. Where is all of this art in your house? And where do you put it all?
The walls stay full, but now, I have to wrap it and store it. So, some things, some things stored. But just like we have work here, we feed other institutions, or we, and it may be much smaller venues and stuff, but just to be seen, if you can ensure it and you can secure it, and it's for a good purpose, I can ride with you.
I love that, and you do feed the institution. No, it's honestly a great way to put it. Question.
I'm interested in hearing about how your collecting styles as individuals might be different from each other, and how we see that in this exhibit, and how you resolve differences.
I love that, the conciliatory nature of being a collecting couple. How do you deal with differences in alignment with collecting?
I buy art, she buys shoes.
That's right, shoes are a different kind of art. I'm on that train. Kerry, you unleashed something in this room. I hope you're prepared to answer for that.
How do we inspire our African American community to look at art as this important and unmistakable thing that we must have and that we must support? I have been insulted so many times when I've interacted with people who don't understand. How do I help them understand the importance of an African American aesthetic? How do we do that? They don't even know they're insulting me.
Wow. Well, I cannot restate that. So I'm just going to say, how do we understand the African American aesthetic? How do you communicate the importance of African American art culturally?
Yes.
You know what? You won't reach everybody. Don't be thin-skinned if you can. I know, everybody don't appreciate, but hey, you do what you do. I have many friends, they come to my house, hey, a Pepsi Cola is fine. They don't, all the stuff they see, even my father, who I love more than anybody dearly, he's like, why Kerry? I Kerry spend money doing that. I ain't got all those pictures. But, my father, hey, he raised us, he worked hard, he did. You won't reach everybody. But those that you can, you do. That's it. You're not responsible. That lady.
And when I started collecting art, I loved to have stories around pieces of art. And I was wondering if you got a great story around one of these pieces.
Ooh, okay, so the idea when you collect, oftentimes you have these stories. And oh my gosh, this is the biggest softball in the world, I feel like, for you. Do you have a great story that you can share?
I will punt because I do know some stories, but I wouldn't dare tell it. I'm afraid I may not get
Oh man!
Some guys, they, real life people and things, and And I guess some things you don't talk about, you know, just they're too personal, or it may not be flattering to all. And I'll never embarrass anybody. But sorry.
The lady in black here.
What is the story behind your signature piece?
That's a
Great question.
This is Cedric Huckabee. She wore her family's quilt. And what's going on there? When we grew up, you know, it was 5 boys, and we played hard, and you know, you pass your clothes down. And you know, I was the youngest, actually. Me and Jerry, I was a little younger than him. So when it get to me, you know, they about worn out. But we would sit with Mama and the floor and take scissors and just cut the patch, cut the pattern, cut the denim, cut it up. And we put all that in the bags. And quite a few people in the church did that. So we take the bag of scraps to the church, and the women in the church, every time a child is born, they gave us a quilt. One year I was at Hammond's house, and I went in and I saw, oh, wow, they're having this textile show. And I looked at it, I saw these quilts, look like, you know, the family history quilts. But the closer I got to it, I said, hey, that's not a quilt, that's a painting. Yeah. And it was just, I couldn't believe, you know, how the texture, it looked just like a quilt. I mean, from a distance, and I wanted to touch it. And a few years later, we were working out in Dallas. I was working for her. And anytime I hit a town, I know where, I mean, all my research, I know where some of these guys live, and I contact them. I got a chance to go out and see. So I told him I really want a painting. And I knew about him painting the quilts. But then also I saw he had done some figurative work and portrait work. And he has work at the National Portrait Gallery in DC. And I'm like, I was split. I wanted a quilt. I want a portrait. I want a quilt. I want a portrait. And we talked, such a wonderful person, he and his wife. So he gave me the best of both worlds. He gave me the title, She Wore Her Family's Quilt. Those quilts they carry so much history in the African American community. And when they, I just love that. So when we named the show of Memories and Inspiration, you see this young lady with her family's quilt, and she's looking kind of pensive, and she kind of looked like she's thinking back or remembering something, or good old days or something. And I was just so inspired by my family story, you know, because much of us come from some, we were just a few generations from picking cotton. And I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about me. I'm talking about my family. And I had this, I know I'm bouncing, but I had this conversation with Jacob Lawrence. I had asked him, you know, I didn't know why the hands so disfigured or seem so big or so out of proportion. He said, oh, I'm just illustrating, these are working class people. These are honest. You know, that resonated with me because that's where my family came from. They were working class people who provided. So these are the stories I want our children to see so they won't be ashamed, you know, of where they are.
I'm so glad you asked that question. Thank you. It's such a good story.
Tell her who he teaches.
Cedric Huckabee, one of his teachers is students, is George Bush.
We have time, if you can believe it, for maybe one more question. So does somebody have a question? Yes.
Is there an artist that you have your eye on now that you're hoping to acquire?
Ooh, do you have your eye on any artists now? He doesn't want to tell us.
There are a few because, you know, we have some holes, you know, different. So there's a few, but, you know, now I'm going back and I'm looking at, and I've just acquired some of the people who were craftsmen like Mary Jackson down in Charleston, South Carolina with the sweetgrass basket. She turned that into an art form. Charles Smith in Mobile, Alabama, a potter. You should see that work. It's phenomenal, you know. And these guys they're in their 70s now, and they are, you know, sometimes I've always felt that I've been ahead of the curve when I was finding art. I'm still there. You know, because I find things that I discover. I never really let anybody sell me on anything, but I know what I want, that kind of thing. So there are some artists that I'm, you know, beginning to look at now.
Who designed the piece on the enter with you?
That's
who designed the sculpture as you enter?
Larry Walker. His name is Larry
Enter
Walker.
the exhibition, which terrifies me every day when I walk into it.
When he brought it to the home,
Yep.
I had that same experience.
All right. Well, do you have any final thoughts for us? Anything else, Kerry, you want to get out to the group, or you have a rapt audience in front of you?
Well, yeah, again, thanks for coming. But if you, you know, if you're inspired by any of this, you know, if you can, you know, get children out to see this. That's my passion. That's my heart. Get some younger people who, you know, who can't go to the Metropolitan Museum in New York or can't go to the big museums. I want to take it down the rural road where people don't have the opportunity. So if you could make that happen or talk to somebody else who could make that happen, that's what my journey is all about. That's why we do what we do.
I love to hear that, and I'll just say, you put your work on a mission trip, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah.
Your work is on a mission trip throughout the United States to share the joy of collecting, the accessibility of collecting, the passion of collecting. And Kerry, you just said a few minutes ago that you feel like you stay ahead of the curve. You are the curve. You're setting a standard. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. It has been such an honor to sit with you. Kerry and Betty, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your collection. Thank you for sharing stories. It is such a blessing to have you both here. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.